My son is starting elementary school. In celebration, my dad suggested we go to a fancy restaurant. I'm Kate. I turned 40 this year. Our family lives together, me, my husband, and my dad, Randall, and my mom, Nancy. My husband, Jason, is 42. We have two kids, our son, Poder, who is 6 and starting elementary school in September, and his little sister, Effie, who is 3. It's rare these days, but we're a bustling 3-generation family of 6. I was thrilled to hear that a branch of the famous restaurant Arva had opened nearby. Arva is a renowned Michelin-starred restaurant. This new branch is just a 20-minute drive from our house. I had always wanted to go, but we usually ended up at our regular diner. It took something special like this celebration to get a chance to dine there. I've been excited for about a week. Jason, who was more reserved, just smiles wryly at me. He's not one to make a fuss. He doesn't say it every time, but whose celebration is it anyway? I guess that's what he was thinking. I know, but it's fine. I was ecstatic to the point where I think Poder's celebration is my celebration. Poder's food is my food. Then the day arrived. Entering the doors of Arva, I was full of anticipation. We have a reservation for 6. Dad spoke up. Yes, for 6. We've been expecting you. But as soon as we sat at the counter, kids, huh? They don't even appreciate the taste. I heard the chef mutter under his breath. What? I did a double take at the chef. He turned his back to us swiftly. Dad and Mom didn't seem to notice anything. Maybe I was the only one who heard it because I was closest to the chef. This restaurant doesn't have prices on the menu, I remarked upon seeing the menu. The chef overheard my quiet comment. A sharp voice came from the chef. Our prices are based on the current market. If you have good eyes, you should be able to guess, he said loudly. Everyone at the counter started looking at us. I was embarrassed. I had never been to such a fancy place. But then, Dad said, Then chef, we'll leave it to you. And he turned to me and said, Don't worry if you're not used to it. It's a celebration for our grandson, so eat your fill. He tapped his wallet. I'll handle the bill. The chef smirked at that, but I didn't miss it. His earlier muttering, the snide remark, and now this attitude. It didn't feel right. But Dad, seemingly oblivious, continued. Just remember to say when you've had enough, or they'll keep bringing more. I didn't know that rule. I've only ever really been at rather casual places, so I felt embarrassed. But what happened next was strange. For our family, they only brought out mac and cheese and french fries, over and over again. Is this their recommendation? Other customers were getting salads and main dishes. I love french fries! The kids were happy, but I still felt uneasy. After the 3rd round of mac and cheese and french fries, We're done, let's have the bill, Dad said calmly. I've never seen him angry. You'd expect someone to get mad over just mac and cheese and french fries, but he was planning to leave peacefully. Here you go. Looking at the bill, I turned white. $600? For just mac and cheese and french fries? Can we see the itemized bill? I had to ask. The chef, with a look of disdain, said, I told you, it's based on the current market price. Current market prices for mac and cheese and french fries? Plus water and juice? I argued back, furious at the absurd price. But even then, look, this isn't like the french fries you eat at McDonald's, the chef said arrogantly, making presumptuous comments. Then show me the details right now, not in the form of a receipt or anything. I get it, you've been mocking me. I confronted the chef, almost grabbing him by the collar. Just wait, I'll pay for it, so you don't have to worry. Dad said so, but I replied, No! With $600, do you know how many times we could have had steak or seafood at a diner? Then, the chef, looking annoyed, began to write something down. When I saw the detailed bill he wrote, my anger only grew. $50 for french fries. $65 for mac and cheese. But what shocked me even more was $20 for a glass of water? That was it. However, the chef said nonchalantly, charging $20 for a glass of water is common sense. No customers have ever complained about it. That means you all don't fit in here. It's obvious when you bring kids. If you don't like it, don't come. Poor people. After saying that, the chef intimidated us with his chest and pushed us out of the restaurant. "We'll pay for what we ate," Dad said, pulling out the credit card from his wallet. The chef snatched it roughly, without a word of thanks, and closed the door. "Grandpa, thank you! The french fries were delicious." "Me too, the mac and cheese was good," the kids said. Dad narrowed his eyes. "That's good, but I feel bad for you guys," I said. "It's not your fault, Dad. That guy was the problem," still in an angry tone. Jason, being timid, said, "I'm really okay with just the french fries. Tomorrow's Sunday. Let's reset and go to another restaurant," Dad suggested. "What? But after spending $600? I protested. "Don't worry. I properly want to celebrate my grandkids, and you've done well raising them to this point. It's also a thank you for that," Dad replied. But then, Dad turning his back to us, muttering, "That brat. Don't get cocky." I couldn't help but overhear. We ended up going to another restaurant the next day. This time, it was a place Dad was familiar with, so I felt relieved. That's because I'll talk about that a bit later. To the kids, "We wanted to eat seafood and such, so let's go again," I said. "Can't miss seafood and steak," they began. So 2 consecutive days weren't a problem. When we got to the restaurant, "Randall, long time no see," Dad was greeted. "Hi, Osbert, long time. Let's go to the chef's choice today. Start with seafood for the grandkids," Dad said, unfolding a napkin. "The seafood will be seasonal, the best for your grandchildren. Maybe salmon for this time of year," the chef Osbert said cheerfully. When people talk about what they love, they become eloquent. This chef was exactly that. He happily talked about the deliciousness of seasonal items. Listening to him made us happy too. A stark contrast to yesterday. And the seafood brought to our table. Delicious! It has a subtle sweetness. What was used in the cooking? The seafood salad, with its dressing, was a perfect match. Refreshing, yet rich. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it the best food of the season. I chewed and swallowed, savoring the food from the tip of my tongue to the back. Each bite seemed too precious to swallow. The smooth seafood oil had no fishy smell, but a sip of white wine reset it all. My palate, ready for the next dish as if it hadn't tasted anything before. Could there be a greater luxury? I was wondering what would come next when, bang! The door flew open with incredible force, so strong I thought it might come off its hinges. Startled by the loud noise, I turned around, only to scream in shock the next moment. What? The chef from yesterday? There stood the arrogant chef from the high-end restaurant that looked down on us the day before. Still in his cooking attire, he barged into the restaurant and rudely took off his hat. "Master, why did you cancel the use of the restaurant Arva name for the branch?" he yelled. Dad responded, sipping water with a smirk. "I was waiting for you." "I heard about it. You were extremely rude to this gentleman," said Osbert, who was called the master, addressing the arrogant chef who had stormed in. "What? This gentleman?" The arrogant chef looked at Dad sitting at the counter. Then, "Ugh, the poor guy from yesterday!" he exclaimed. Osbert retorted, "Poor? Do you even realize who this man is?" he yelled loudly. "This man is my master, the founder of Restaurant Arva." "What?" The arrogant chef reflexively apologized to Dad on the spot. I was a bit surprised and excited. Actually, I knew that Dad was the chef of Restaurant Arva. He had retired from Restaurant Arva and handed over the chef duties to Osbert. This was that restaurant. And the branch of Restaurant Arva, when we visited yesterday, had this arrogant chef. I wanted to say that during the absurd customer service and the exorbitant bill, but Dad had wanted to handle it quietly, so I didn't say anything. I also thought that Dad must have had something in mind, so I kept quiet. And here we were. It wasn't a lie when I said we usually eat at casual diners. It was mostly casual diners when it was just the kids, Jason and me. My dad is a chef. Out of respect for Dad's pride as a chef, we didn't go to cheap restaurants when my parents were around. And when it was just the 4 of us, me, Jason, and the kids, we went to casual diners. So, in a sense, we were poor people who only ate at diners, but I couldn't stand the arrogant chef from yesterday. Now, watching the arrogant chef apologize was somewhat amusing. After glancing at the arrogant chef, Dad said, "May I borrow a knife?" Osbert stood up and walked into the kitchen. "Of course, master!" And goes into the kitchen. "The dish we had earlier was exactly as I had instructed. You're doing well." He spoke to Osbert and then took hold of a knife. Dad's knife skills transformed the same menu item that had been served earlier. The seafood looked different just because of the way it was cut. He placed it in front of the five of us, then served the last piece of salmon. "Try this," he said to the arrogant chef. The arrogant chef got up leisurely. He took a bite. "What is this?" The arrogant chef's eyes widened. "That's the point," Dad said. "The taste is completely different depending on how you use the knife." The arrogant chef's voice trembled. "Compared to that," Dad continued, "the salmon you cut and served to other customers wasn't uniformly thick, which affects the taste." The arrogant chef shrunk in size, looking down. "That's not all. The other seafood was the same, and the mac and cheese was overcooked and the french fries were over-fried." Then Dad turned to Osbert and said, "I think it was too early to open a branch with this guy." Osbert apologized. "Well, then let's hear the reason why you only served mac and cheese and french fries for the chef's choice." Dad continued. "What?" Osbert exclaimed in surprise. The arrogant chef started to tremble. Osbert stood in front of the cowering, looking down arrogant chef, arms crossed, voice trembling with anger. "You! What have you done? Mac and cheese and french fries were the chef's choice?" "That's not all," Dad continues speaking. "The water was $20 a glass." $20? The chef's voice cracked. Osbert's voice cracked. Then the arrogant chef began making excuses. His explanation was so outrageous that everyone present was stunned. "At first, I didn't want to bother with small change, so I made water current market price to make it an even $100 bill." "What?" Jason and I exclaimed in unison. "So if the bill was $90, you'd charge $10 for water, and if it was $20, you'd charge $80 for water?" Jason asked unusually. "Current market price. That's the most ridiculous current market price ever!" Osbert yelled. "So it was $20 this time," Dad said. "Honestly, for office workers, they become repeat customers. But families, especially with small children and elderly, only come for special occasions, so we can't expect repeats." The arrogant chef started. To this, "There's no such business strategy." Even Dad, who was usually calm, got angry. "Listen, a business strategy is something you talk about after you've properly delivered your services. Current market price is a proud pricing for the freshness of fish, visible to the eye. Don't misuse it for trivial accounting conveniences. And you haven't even reached the level of skill to cook them properly. Customers are equal. They pay and look forward to their meal, no matter the day or time. Don't presume to scrutinize them." Dad rarely got this angry or spoke this much. I think his chef's pride made him do it. The arrogant chef was cowed and looking down. After a stern lecture, "What are you going to do about him?" Dad asked Osbert, and then he said, "You do understand," to the still looking down arrogant chef. "You are forbidden to use the Restaurant Arva name," Osbert said. "He wasn't like that before, and his taste was solid, but he changed after owning this place," Osbert said. Being a famous restaurant's branch, customers would come just for the name, and he probably got conceited with a high customer count. He kept deteriorating in his quest for more profit. Still, Dad's skills hadn't faded with age. "Grandpa, you were cool," said Potter. Thus, the arrogant chef was made to change the name of his restaurant. But that restaurant closed within a few months. Without the famous name, it was a world of pure skill. The taste must have been lacking. "Wasn't tasty, just famous," was the harsh critique on Yelp. The arrogant chef became infamous for the Restaurant Arva branch incidents and couldn't find work anywhere. He returned to the countryside, I heard, from Dad's disciple, the chef. The absurd $600 bill was returned by the chef, who took it from the arrogant chef. Osbert said it was his responsibility for training such a man and a gift to the master. He even made our meal that day free. One day, "Grandpa, this is a thank you," Effie said, smiling, handing something to Dad. In her small hand was a slightly clumsy seafood salad, all bought from a grocery store. Effie had arranged it on a plate herself. The dressing was overdone and too salty, but Dad ate it with a beaming smile. "Delicious! Thank you," he said, stroking Effie's head happily. "I'll pass on showing off today," said Potter. "When I grow up and become a chef, I'll invite Grandpa as my first customer," he also said. Dad stroked Potter's head too, looking happy. "If I make something really delicious, let me use the restaurant Arva name too," Potter said. He didn't yet understand what it means to use that name entailed. "I hope you can," Dad laughed.